They say there used to be a statue of a girl here. Maybe she just lost her interest. Lost hope for this world.
You can't avoid death. It is the ultimate inevitability. You can't stop death. Can't plead, can't negotiate, and can only run from it for so long. And in this digital world, meant to birth life, what was once the death in a game has become far, far more. But while its embodiment has been born, claimed its title, he has yet to awaken the power of the Reaper. Woe be to anyone who enters death's gaze once his eyes have been opened. And in the shadow of the goddess's twilight, the binds that have kept Haseo from growing were all falling away. Now, his true power stirs, for upon his second demise, does the terror of death become aware.
The terror of death, the mirage of deceit, the propagation, the prophet, the machinator, the Tetris, the avenger, the rebirth.
So here we are, finally. I have to admit something outright before we start. These games are the original reason I even started this retrospective. Dot Hack is now looked back on favorably by the majority of the gaming community by this point in its run. It rarely makes people's favorites. In fact, outside of Japan it sold rather poorly. And that helped at how bad GU's prequel, Roots, went over. Yeah, about Roots. It's amazing how irrelevant it was. Why do all prequels inevitably suck? While all of that is considered to have happened, aside from a few callback references to things like Tabby, Philo, and the Forest of Pain, everything important is restated in GU or outright contradicted, and all the better for it. But yeah, GU is not fondly remembered by a lot of people. Not because it's bad, but because so few people played it. I do come across a number of people that do know about it, enough that I can regularly see cosplays at conventions, but most of the love only ever went to the first era, in specific sign. And past these games, Bandai of America effectively threw the franchise to the wolves. Not surprising, since this was, as I have gone over in my Digimon game reviews, well into the years where the American branch was taken over by utter incompetence, and their quality was run into the ground. Past these games, only Trilogy would be imported by them, never even getting a dub, and the rest of the English Dot Hack content would either come from fan projects, Funimation with freaking Quantum, or the novels and manga translated by Tokyopop. But here's the thing you need to understand. I love GU. This is my favorite RPG, my second favorite game of all time right after Zone of the Enders the Second Runner. These together are the gold standard I compare all role-playing games against over on RPG Hell. And most people don't even know it exists. Hell, I almost didn't come across it and its majesty. As I have said, Legend of the Twilight Bracelet so ruined me to the franchise at the time that I never even glanced at any of its other titles. I only ended up coming across GU by accident, and not through what you'd normally expect, but regardless, I did. And I never regretted it. That isn't to say that everyone that did play it likes it, but most of the people who hate it never even bothered to finish even the first of the trilogy, and never saw the way everything they disliked developed, how everything was used to its payoffs, its grandeur. But the most common criticism I hear from naysayers is people stating Haseo is a ripoff of one of the worst characters coming out of Japan in the last 15 years, Sasuke Uchiha. And they could not be more wrong. Yes, they share many commonalities, not limited to the English voice actor chosen for the role, Yuri Lowenthal, and that stupid hairstyle. But most of the reasons people cite, were not actually valid at the time and came later in the narrative of the Naruto story. Yes, this parallel lasts to this day, to my irritation. Or have core motivational differences that make them irrelevant to compare. Ultimately, it's why Ryo Masaki remains not only among my favorite characters ever, but one of the most popular ones in this franchise, while more and more people join the Uchiha hate train. There are two chief reasons I can point out that invalidates most of it outright. The first is why they seek power. Sasuke's motivations have always been completely, utterly, and entirely maliciously selfish, while Haseo seeks power for the sake of others.
Use power for the right things. At least for the things that you believe in.
The second one is GU is actually about Haseo! I don't have the time to point out all of Naruto's failings, but its execution of Sasuke's story arc has to be among its worst aspects. Inconceivably continuing to dig itself deeper when the grand majority of the people that were fans just want the bastard gone. Here's the thing though. This is the point where the two diverge. Right here. The beginning of Haseo's true story is where they stop being anything alike, as he continues to develop as a character while Sasuke never did. In fact, Haseo is what I believe Sasuke should have been. Granted, he's still going to be a jerk for quite some time yet, but Haseo quickly proves himself as the anti-Sasuke, as we will soon see. Yeah, he's ridiculously driven, but he doesn't outright betray people. But wait, people that don't know this franchise state, Haseo had Tabby, and he betrayed her in the PK event! No, he really didn't. As I went over, Tabby was not helping at all. Throughout the series, she has been shown to not only be incompetent by regularly striving through her actions to be as unhelpful as possible, alienating Haseo, getting herself and others PK'd, and making a conscious effort to do everything but get better with their problems. Her decision to become a nurse was done with the expectation that she'll get through that and help Shino, but as I went over, she never left to do that until long after Shino had been hospitalized, and, spoilers, the events of GU conclude long before she even gets through her first semester of nurses' school. This is another reason why I get so angry about Tabby. Her influence is still felt here in how Haseo deals with others. I will be talking a lot about character motive in the encounters because of how important it actually is, as there are several tiers of depth to everyone, even if I don't understand it, and there aren't any cardboard characters. Essentially, after all the shit I went through with the Fabula Nova Crystallis, I need to re-emphasize how you do a game with actual character and story in it. But getting back to my point, this is the beginning of Haseo's true journey, his loss to the twin blade they've dubbed Tri-Edge. Starting again from zero, with nothing he accomplished having mattered. So he can't ignore the people who come into his life. He needs them now as much as they do to even get back to where he was, taking their offer of help as he has no other way to advance. Sure, many of them have strings, but he's going into them eyes open to that possibility. The problem becomes one of trust, and all of this will be shown in the following events. But before we get to that, I need to explain something else that a lot of people did not understand. Ryo Masaki, and his identities as Sora the Betrayer and Haseo the Terror of Death. You'll remember I was confused how Sora could be at the celebration in .hack unison, considering later series events, with his memories being, well, scrambled. In fact, at this point in time, Ryo does not ever remember playing the world at all before he first logged into R2. But that's all answered in certain places that were never translated. Specifically, the novel .hack 0. You remember this bit?
An AI character whose player doesn't exist in the real world.
And I'm not even kidding, that's actually what happened. All of Ryo, that was Sora. The arrogance, the personality, the memories. Scathe consumed them. And when the system reset happened and Ryo awoke, they didn't go with him, and thus were left to drift in the remains of his player character, little more than a vagrant AI, not even aware enough to realize he was now just like Tsukasa. The lead speak from quarantine after you recruit Sora? Yeah, that was all Bandai of America before they went to suck. The Japanese cut was completely unintelligible characters, not unlike the messages Aura was sending us in that game. Yeah, this was planned that far back. Granted, Zero is set between Sign and the first game's events, with Sora's PC possessed as a humanoid form for Scathe, much like Maha did with Mia, and would serve as that Epitaph PC fusion Bansoya would later reference in Project GU, but the precedent stands and did in fact continue long after. The Sora vagrant would die when the Great System Crash happened, flung into the Sea of Data, but found again by a familiar force. And that will be important to remember soon enough. Rebirth starts at, well, the beginning. Ryo's first login as Haseo. As I said with Roots does not actually start at the beginning is shown in the games. He is approached by Asta and Ioten, player killers that hunt level 1 newbies that get off on showing them how to play just so they can make the kill all the sweeter. This is a glorified tutorial level, but the framing device shows all the more how superior it is to a lot of games, writing in the reason for it into the narrative itself. Hell, this way they even fixed that irritation of giving us a companion, and yet not letting us use him until after the game is over like the Core 4, as we're given a reason why we don't want Asta and Ioten back. Most of the controls are the same from the original games, with a few shifts. Now you have a skill trigger system activated by R1, which integrates special attacks into a leveling system dependent on use of the skills, as opposed to being tied to the weapons. And you can block attacks of monsters. The menu system also moves much faster and with no annoying sound effects. The stat display has been streamlined and takes up far less of the screen. And best of all, the party AI is vastly improved, simplifying the options and even giving a dedicated setting for designating a healer. You still have to go into the specific menus for spellcasting when the specific skills are not the specialties of that class, but this speeds up things immensely. It's fixing problems inherent in the first one while staying true to its roots. This is how you improve a combat system! And best of all, the trilogy was released enough apart from each other that they continued to tweak the battle system through the successive parts while adding new features, giving more improvements. Most of the time. While the equipment has lost the integrated attacks, they still bear powerful abilities. Common ones able to be customized easily from situation to situation, while rare ones come with locked-in but unique advantages. Battle occurs in locked-off rings that give visual indicators to other players while boxing in the combatants. It takes a smokescreen to escape them, but saves you the trouble of chasing after runners while giving quick beginning and end animations and quips, experience quickly being allotted, with bonuses determined if you ambush the enemy. This is the kind of thing Final Fantasy has been trying to do since 12. And it never ceases to be absolutely hilarious that Bandai, who's not known for making the best of games, executed this perfectly, while Square Enix continues to screw it up. Bar possibly with Kingdom Hearts. Another way these games are awesome along a similar vein, that Square could really have learned from, this was not the original draft of the game's story. It actually went through several revisions and changed a lot from what was originally intended, all to make it a better experience and more consistent, while at the core having the same overarching themes, events, and staying true to what .hack is. That's right! This wasn't someone writing a story from the notes of others and the production team just going with it. They went back to the drawing board on fucking everything. This was Haseo's original design, for example. And the original draft of the games was eventually published in the form of the GU novel series. The books were some of the last .hack content imported before the Tokyo Pop restructure, to the point they were so hard to find I was under the impression that they never were translated. Glad I was wrong on that. But yeah, then we get to Asta and Ioten's betrayal, and Ovan's saving of Haseo, which allows us to time skip ahead to the day Haseo fought Tri-Edge. More things happened on that day that Roots skipped by. Let's go through them, shall we? The opening credits roll as Team Only One Target, the BK Bordeaux and her flunkies, go around killing defenseless players, only for Haseo to step in. Oh yeah! I fucking love this scene, as it shows how things have changed since Haseo's first day, while cementing his infamous reputation, and listing off the credits to every actor that will be showcased in this ongoing narrative. And while GU is firmly Haseo's story, it is certainly more an ensemble than the original quartet.
Do you know Tri-Edge? What did you say?
He's a legendary PK, shrouded in blue fire. They say players that get killed by him never come back to the game.
Huh? Oh, come on now. Don't tell me you actually believe that crap. Those old forum fairy tales.
So after bisecting Bordeaux, Haseo heads back through Mac Anu, only to be accosted by the player Sakaki, who is the vocal proponent of a faction of anti-PK players known as Moontree. Villain. He's the villain. I know in the past I have said that CC Corp is the recurring true enemy of the .hack franchise, but you will learn to despise this fascist. And it is intentionally written that way. Helped in the acting department by Sakaki being voiced by Crispin Freeman. So if you played or watched the series and got used to him as Balmung, you initially expected him to be like the noble but idiotic knight and not a silver-tongued asshole. He thinks PKKs like Haseo, who hunt PKs as they commit these acts, are only fueling the problem, taken from evidence of the attacks Moontree stops and the decreasing amount of calls for assistance as their method actually working. My reply? Do you actually do follow-ups on the attacks you stop to make sure they're actually stopping? I've known a number of douchebags like this guy in real life. People who get away with their crap because the arguments they make are so well phrased, it is exceedingly difficult to refute them, even when he is wrong or you disagree, as they leave no room for debate or argument for those of lesser vocal caliber. Sakaki is so eloquent and pointed in his speech, he tends to twist words and events to his own gain on a majority of outcomes. It is so well done, the evolution to his arc. From a guy who rubs you the wrong way with his naive but forceful viewpoints that you can't refute without physical example, to its eventual ends. But he has one thing going for him.
Shino!
This is Adelie, played by Bridget Hoffman. While a convert to the Moontree cult, she has good reasons for doing so. And Adelie is my second favorite character in GU, easily in the top 5 in all of .hack. And you will understand why in time. And the way they meet will have major repercussions. But due to Haseo's personality, and him catching sight of Ovan, the meeting is cut short. Haseo declares how strong he's become to Ovan as they meet, the latter telling him Tri-Edge will be returning to Cool Grounds. I skipped over the Tri-Edge fighting routes for good reason. It is far, far superior here. It's only 3 clashes, but it has so much more energy, emotion to it. You see the true power of this entity, and due to the scene earlier of his elimination of Team Only One Target, you understand that the Frankenstein's monster-esque player is as far beyond Haseo as he was beyond them. But not because of stats, but because of that barrier that a normal player has no way of piercing. It takes being aware of some unknown power to be able to fight him. Some program normal players don't have. And Haseo is not there yet. And due to how his PC gained its current form, he can't. That is the curse Harold placed upon him, and that ultimately leads to Haseo's weapons breaking. And with his protection broken, the bracelet activates, and Haseo falls. I know that opening bit was pretentious, but I was trying to frame the inevitability of these events, and Haseo is synonymous with death for many in GU. Anyways, this death boots Ryo out of the game, unconscious for some undetermined time, and causing his entire PC to be rebooted, losing a lot of data. His member addresses, messages to and from Shino that he cherished, and of course his character data, reset, as I have said, to level 1. Right here is where the last episode of Roots supposedly occurs, but due to how continuity is shown, it can't. As I've said, you have to ignore a lot of Roots. I'm not going to be focusing as much on the news and external story elements as I did in the reviews of the first games as, well, while they are important, there is a lot to cover in GU that is far more so. I will say, however, that it is amazing how accurate some of the fictional news feeds are to current events. A lot of people say Star Trek predicted the future, with the developments in technology seen there first. Communicators to cell phones, holographics technology, touch screens, stun weapons like tasers. Except that's inspiring developments to be like stuff seen in the show, not predicting them.
.hack, however, is more indicative of predicting trends for life in gaming. You know all that stuff concerning the Oculus Rift and Google Glass? Well, let me introduce you to the M2D, and a gaming epidemic where people put them on and play anywhere. Want a man marrying someone that isn't real, or two people falling in love through their online personas? You have that. Hell, in really creepy ways too. Autism and behavioral abnormalities caused by gameplay to exclusion of all else. Well, let me tell you about Doll Syndrome. GPS tracking chips implanted in kids. Oh look! RFID scanning becoming more commonplace for credit and debit cards. Actually, they were a staple in Japan around this time already. Mega corporations taking themselves to be above the law, or bribing the government so they can do business as usual. Well, that's actually been a trope for a long time, but is more accurate in depicting it in the limitation to gaming corporations and being bastards. Idiots! Getting hold of games they should not be playing due to their maturity and being improperly influenced into criminal acts. Whoops. And television being broadcast exclusively over the internet, and random people hosting their own shows with no professional training and becoming big hits. Meet Salvador Ihara and Online Jack.
Yes, .hack predicted the rise of monetizable internet personalities more than a year before the Nostalgia Critic put on his hat. I love this series.
There are a bunch of others in here I could showcase, but due to their framing devices as ongoing news articles, it shows how superior it is once again to things like Final Fantasy XIII. This is all stuff you don't need to know but helps expand your limited view of this reality, and is delivered in a well-written, self-contained manner that gives you all of the details you actually need if you go to look for answers. It could have been removed, but you would have actually lost something as a result. Compared to the data logs, which were worthless and was exceedingly rare, it answered your questions without making you ask new ones. It is world building, and for anyone trying to tell a story, it is important, damn it.
I should note, however, that several of these were not translated well. As I've said, this was well into the years of the Bandai of America competence black hole. I tolerate it here because there is one incident we will get to in Redemption that is just so absolutely inexcusable that it just absorbs all of my ire, my hatred of that, and by proxy, lets me give everything else a bye.
Also, if you have saved game data, you can get special bonuses by importing it. If you have completed the game, you can get your starting levels boosted, which greatly encourages replay, and if you have Quarantine, you unlock several other exclusives.
In the Japanese version, one of them only flagged if you got .hack Fragment, but that was never released outside of Japan. The Western version's game data was adjusted accordingly to compensate, and covered under the Quarantine upload. Competency!
What pops up is a letter from Black Rose, originally sent to Kite at the end of Quarantine, continuing the will they won't they emotions brought up last in the Another Birth novels, and a message from Hokuto to Reina, who is mislabeled as Elena.
I didn't take the time to cover it, but Hokuto and Albiero popped up in Legend of the Twilight Bracelet. It was a small but important role that gave them a bit of closure concerning Lycoris, which is continued on here. Except
They screwed up the pronouns, so Albiero is referred to as her.
Okay, about not getting frustrated with the translations, I lied. Ah!
Yeah, if you haven't gotten it by now, AI Buster is my favorite of the novels. I hate that it keeps getting insulted, but I love that these characters keep getting seen. It's fan appreciation to know Hokuto and Alberio got together and, as they have a kid by the end of Quantum, stayed together, even with how damaged Alberio was after killing Lycoris. And I am very thankful that the English edition allowed us to unlock these messages. But they don't show up for review mail checks. The first time, it's a message from Ovan, which leaves him an out. An option to leave this all behind with no strings attached.
This is important to remember when looking back. Ovan warns him about what waits ahead, and gives him the choice. He doesn't give specifics. He can't if he wants Haseo to exceed on his own merit. And Haseo likewise just can't give up. Not here, not now. Because he's the only one fighting for Shino.
Before we leave, there are also the forum boards. Like last game, the forums are an endless source of good information, from area words to fields for hunting items, and now you can actually interact to a degree to find hidden side quest stuff.
Hint, hint.
The Apkalu section is also stuffed with customizable wallpapers for the in-game desktops. Many of these I want actual wallpapers of.
Like the core 4, checking them regularly is a necessity. You don't need to do as much from them to get stuff like all the extra companions those gave up, aside from a few events, but like the news segments, it helps build stuff organically.
R2's main menu also has all that lore stuff I mentioned at the beginning of the Roots reviews, if you're curious, but it's less important as it's stuff that's a game within a game, and less relevant than the truth. Haseo logs in, and as mentioned previously, he's lost everything. Fortunately, some gossipers mention seeing a man with a weird left arm, Ovan, and Haseo begins to scour Mac Anu, serving as a familiarization step for the largest of the main towns, while also making the players aware of some of the threats Haseo has to face from losing 132 levels. PKers are abound that are not only likely to attack him because he's weak, but also because of his rep. Bordeaux in particular wanting a rematch where she can properly crush him.
Well, with the thighs in her character model... Oh, come on, you were thinking that too. Most of the women in these games are dressed skimpily or to an alluring manner. Adeline Chino's character models are in nightgowns with a stupid hat!
And Haseo hates that he has to hide from them. It's not like him, and with context of Roots, he got sick of doing that against Tan. So he continues the hunt once more, only to lead into meeting Gaspard and Syllabus, the members of Canard.
Hoo boy, Canard. This was what I was talking about when I mentioned disliked elements paying off later.
While I actually like Syllabus the Blade Brandier, as he's a really nice guy, someone who's a bit of a tech nut and an addicted gamer introvert, Gaspard the Shadow Warlock tends to be a presumptive and clingy nuisance.
Though after Tabby and knowing how he develops, it's hard to actually feel any genuine ire towards him anymore. But it doesn't stop him from seeming like an idiot early on.
Mainly in how he jumps to conclusions without evidence. Specifically, after ramming into Haseo, he calls him a noob for being a level 1 character.
Noob support guild?
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Which, if you're not up to date on your net lingo, a noob are douchebag users that, no matter how long they play a game, never get better at it and yet parade their superiority using cheap and broken tactics exclusively. While noobs are players that are new to the game, are open to getting better, and are most of the time polite or sociable. Now, would you be very polite to a person who ran into you and then insulted you?
It's no wonder why Canard, which is a newer player support guild, only has them as members when they open with insulting players that just joined the game.
Now, while he's presumptive on Haseo's case, a level 1 reset glitch is a rarity. But, back when I was an MMO addict, I actually ran into them a couple times. And part of the problem with this presumption is the belief that when playing an MMO, people limit themselves to playing one character exclusively. Some people like going back to scratch and trying something new, experience the world and the quest stories again in an entirely new manner. So, again, doing that just shows how ignorant Gaspard is.
Which is especially insulting as, this is getting a bit ahead, Gaspard is the stereotypical nerd. Overweight, a gaming nut, and the reigning champion of the in-universe card game Crimson Versus.
He's 13, so some of that is forgivable. I doubt any of you were that bright at 13. I know I wasn't. Along with Syllabus, they make up the two common interpretations of gaming culture and represent the outsider viewpoint, those not involved with the main story but are duly affected by it.
And of course, he takes it to the ultimate extreme as disregarding Haseo's explanation about the level 1 reset as just being a role player, that he could not possibly be the Terror of Death as he thinks it's someone else. However, Haseo doesn't have much of a choice. If he wants to get back to where he was to even challenge Tri-Edge again, he needs to level up, and doing that at low level is safer in groups. So Haseo swallows his pride.
Something Sasuke would never do. Boom! Game, set, match on that, and we're not even an hour into the game. Crap, these are going to be long reviews again.
And agrees to join them in a trip to an area to start leveling back up.
Which is where we'll cut it for now, cause even this first trip has consequences we'll need to hit. See you next time.